Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ibima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs, the X-Review edition. It's winter now, and you would think that the war in Ukraine would have slowed down. After all, it's supposed to be a time when the snow will be impacting on the ability of the military generals to put out their maneuvers and planning. But it's not the case. The war is really intensifying in Ukraine. And at this very time, the Russians are, maybe because they are very good at this kind of warfare. After all, they used it on the Germans and they used it also on the French. They are thriving very much so in this particular winter season. So we get a lot of report about the advances of the Russians in Zaporizhia, in Kupiansk, in Kharkiv, in the whole of all these oblasts that you would have thought they would be slowing down. Rather, it's not the case. They are moving very fast, very, very fast, picking up territory. And it may just be the fact that the Russians are moving so fast that we now hear that there's a tendency, there's a likelihood that the Ukrainians may sign a peace deal. So going into the report here, I have one. The first report I have is the report that says precision strikes by UAVs in Zaporizhia. UAV operators disrupt Ukrainian forces. In Zaporizhia region, operators from the drone warfare units, um, in collaboration with the Ulyanovsk Airborne Assault Division, have successfully targeted Ukrainian military assets near the recently liberated settlement of Lokinovsky. Precise strikes were executed against personnel and equipment in the Ukrainian Air Force. This year is this compilation, and we see this a lot now. The Russian drone forces have become very, very, very effective. As we know, Andrei Bolusov formed these drone forces, of which the most notable is the Rubicon drone group. They've become so effective now. They observe, they have the ones that loiter and observe. They also have the ones that do damage, they attack drones. Notably, we know of all these loitering ammunitions. So when you see this, they have so much images they put out and they show us. Here we can see them attacking a Ukrainian drone relay station, one military vehicle. Continuously, they disrupted that rotation. And it is this kind of asset and this kind of deployments of drone that has reshaped the world. Drones have become an equation that was not factored in the whole of the West. It was never a part of NATO's strategy. So now we see that the Russians are using this drone very, very effectively, and it is becoming very destructive to the Ukrainians. Destruction of enemy equipment by FPV drone unit. Recent footage showcases the successful strikes by FPV drones by Rubicon Testing Center in the Russian Ministry of. It's unending, it's continuous. Let's go on to the next story now. That story has to do with Mark Carney's recent visit um, to China. Mark Carney, we know, is the Prime Minister of Canada, and he has pivoted very decisively towards China. The reason is very clear. Richie Torres, who is he? Richie Torres' personal account, in which I speak for myself rather than the federal government account, Rep. Richie Torres. So he's a government representative, obviously, is from New York. So he is saying that Donald Trump is actively antagonizing America's allies to the benefit of the Chinese Communist Party. America's worst enemy is not China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran. It is the self-sabotaging presidency of Donald Trump. It's very ironic. Donald Trump put out a Liberation Day. And if we remember, in the first Trump administration, in his 44th, as the 45th president, he had a good relationship with the Canadians, and the Canadians even helped him to stymie the influence of the Chinese. The Canadians have been in on all of the attempts by the Americans to stop the Chinese, but now we see these tariffs put on by President Trump, and not only the tariffs, they talk about seizing Greenland, they talk about getting Canada as the 51st state of America. All this talk has made the Canadians This obviously is from the account by McCartney, the prime minister. He went to visit China and he was very, he put out the video. So he put out the video of his visit and he stated that it was a very successful one. They had a lot of deals made, agriculture, in renewable energy, in automation, automotive industry. A lot of deals were made by the Canadians and they were very proud of it. We should remember that Canada and China is the second largest trading partner of Canada, but they really want to expand that trade. And he was talked so much about how successful it was a trip for him. Anyway, let's go on to the next story here now. The next story will be one that tries to debunk a perception, especially by think tanks like the Institute for the Study of War, American think tanks. The Russians insist that they control completely the whole of Kupiansk. All districts of Kupiansk are under the Russian military, Russian forces, military commander to Russia defense minister. But we assess that the enemy has not abandoned its plans. Its offensive operations, for example, which it conducted in December, November, was unsuccessful. The battleground commander, Colonel General Sergei Kuzolev, told Defense Minister Andrei Bolusov. This is the main discussion for. In November, the Ukrainians launched a counter-offensive to try and win back territories in Kupiansk. They were quite successful in the western part of it. But what we now say is that the Russians have stood their ground and they actually are claiming and saying that they control the whole of the territories and districts of Kupiansk. Bolusov has been very active as a defense minister. We should remember Bolusov is an economist. He's actually not a military man. But the Russian army has a tradition of people like the defense ministers and the president. They have ceremonial attires that they give to them for events like this. So Bolusov here is giving awards to the different groups and different fighters and warriors of Russia. But they are stating very categorically that Kupiansk is now completely under Russian command. Let's go to the next story, and that story has to do. Trump just pardoned a banker implicated in bribery scheme after his daughter donated $3.5 million to the Trump campaign. Trump pardoned a guy who faced felony bribery charges after accepting a bribe, the most corrupt president. This is the interesting thing about there's an interesting thing about the American democracy. Everybody can say their own piece. Everybody can state what and the freedom of speech. We should remember that in America, the freedom of speech is the First Amendment. The First Amendment of the Constitution is a right that Americans defend, and it is for that right. That is the main thing that makes them very different from the kind of democracy being practiced now in Europe, where for very little tweets and for very little statements, you could find yourself sanctioned, you could find yourself in prison, as is happening in the UK. Anyway, let's go on to the next story. Denmark is a model ally of the US. They fought in every war Washington asked for. They granted the US unlimited military access to Greenland. Trump threatening them with it's a massive betrayal that tells every other ally your loyalty means nothing. Well, what the argument President Trump has of this particular case is that it's good to rent and pay leases to the Danes for Greenland, but it's better to own Greenland. And despite the fact that for several years there's a treaty between Greenland Denmark and America, the 1951 treaty that allows them access and complete use of Greenland. But President Trump says it's a lease and he wants this. He has been very emphatic. The Danes sent their foreign minister. The Greenland foreign minister was also in Washington to discuss with Marco Rubio. They came and met with J.D. Vance, but unfortunately, they were not. They were told very clearly that America was going to take Greenland either by military means or by every means necessary. Trump teamed line up for peace plan in Gaza. Yes, he has already gotten a peace board of peace, as he calls it. He has finally released his name, his board of peace, and this is the list of people in his board of peace. We have Ali Al-Tawadi, Qatari businessman, Riyam Al-Hashami, Minister of International Cooperation of, I think it's UAE, Assam Rashad, high-ranking Egyptian intelligence official, Hakam Fidan, Turkish Foreign Minister, Yag Golan, an Israeli businessman, Steve Witkoff, real estate billionaire, Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of Britain, Mark Rowan, CEO of Apollo, and Nikolai Mladenov, former UN coordinator, and Sprika, high-ranking UN official. I actually got a point that there was also the head of the World Bank in it. So this is the second part of his peace plan. President Trump's peace plan, we should remember, has been adopted by the United Nations Security Council. It is the only time that a framework of peace somehow has been accepted and been implemented, no matter how fractured that implementation is going on. And since the October 7th strike against Israel, Gaza has been under constant bombardment, and this is an attempt to bring peace back to Gaza. Although they are going through a very harrowing winter, rains and snow and all of that is making that place very difficult, and the Israelis continue to bomb Gaza. But at least this push towards peace is somehow better than nothing at all. There was an expectation that America was going to bomb Iran recently. And that expectation led to this point where when they looked at it, it wasn't really, things didn't line up. America still had a lot of military assets within the Gulf, and the Iranians had said categorically that they were going to bomb those military assets. But we now hear that, one, aircraft carriers are being deployed to the Middle East, and besides that, we are now also finding out that the Americans are slowly beginning to take away their planes from air bases within that region. We know that personnel were moved out of Al Udeid, but we're also seeing here now that planes are being moved out of Saudi Arabia, Prince Sultan Air Base. Recent satellite imagery comparing January 10 and January 15 shows significant reduction in aircraft in the base, including US and Saudi platforms. On January 10, the base hosted multiple K6-46 Pegasus aerial refueling tanks, K6-135 Stratotankers, numerous 130 Hercules transport, and a C-17 Globemaster. But on January 15, many of these assets have been dispersed or removed, leaving only a limited footprint. This kind of drawdown is standard force protection measures typically used ahead of heightened regional tension. Evacuations like this don't confirm imminent conflict, but they do signal that planners are preparing for escalation. It is actually thought that eventually the Americans are still going to make this strike against Iran. Iran has actually vowed retaliation, but Iran doesn't have to damage, or they have won. Iran has threatened preemptive action, and maybe that's why they took these planes off of there. But Iran are also threatening that they're going to destroy trade within that region, because they can always put pain to the whole world by blocking the Strait of Hormuz. It is for that reason why we feel that the Gulf countries impressed upon President Trump very heavily to stave off bombing Iran. Anyway, this is another story again that lines up with what is about that same possibility of an imminent attack, despite the fact that we have this pause by President Trump. An American military ship conducting reconnaissance operations in the Persian Gulf opposite the coast of Iran. That is always there. That has always been. It has the Americans have always ISR assets and capabilities all over that region. They don't let go for one single day. Justin, Canada agrees to cut 100% tariff on EVs in exchange for lower tariffs on Canadian farm products. This is one of the benefits of, this is one of the successes or benefits or outcomes of Prime Minister Kanye's visit to China. he got I think the tariffs, 100% tariffs, it was 100% tariffs on EVs, but I think it has been reduced to about 6 to 15%. It's not completely free. And it has been limited to the number that it was before that ban or of 100% or that tariff, 100% tariff was placed. And that's 49,000 electric vehicles. But the biggest news will be that they are now being allowed to also build factories to build these electric vehicles in Canada. So that's what's going on there. Greenland and Denmark have no say, have said no. You need to respect that. You said you have zero international support for your plans, only you and a small inner circle. Who is this? Ola. I love my country, Greenland, and I'm proud to share it to the world. Ola Jolson is saying that Greenland doesn't want America. At least 75% of Americans oppose US attempting to take control of Greenland. We will watch how this will play out in history, but if President Trump does go ahead and put it and wants to be remembered in history as the one who got Greenland for America, it just doesn't seem like there will be anything the whole of Europe, the whole of NATO, the whole of Denmark, and even the whole of the Greenland people can do about it. The impulses to take Greenland, for whatever reason, is very strong. It's an American agenda that has subsisted for over 100 years. It's not just one pushed by President Trump. It's been there for a long time, and it's not going to go away. So President Trump may just be the one who decidedly, because they've come to see that he's quite unpredictable, he does a lot of things, and he may force the Danes to come to an agreement, either a purchase deal or a sale of some sort. I've been told that that line of withdrawal ends in the bridge of Tbilisi-Afanan on the map. It is the Shaub al-Deker bridge. It will make a logical boundary. This is Syria, obviously, Aleppo, the city of Aleppo. There has been some serious battles going on between rival groups within that neighborhood. If I am correct, I'm not so sure, but I think that is what it is. And this is west of the Euphrates River. Allied groups, Kurdish groups allied to the Americans were having a big problems with the Turkish affiliated groups. They were getting a pounding, and America moved in and stepped in to save them. I think this is the line of control. This is the line that they agreed should be the point of withdrawal. So Syria is undergoing some tectonic changes. They are making some realignments. At least one thing I can say, though, is that the Syrian president has the complete protection of the American president. And the fact that they have Kurdish allies, the Kurdish allies have been very particularly useful to the Americans in their fight against ISIS. But unfortunately, the Turks don't see them that way. And the Turks have a very big hand in this present reality in Syria because they helped to push away the Assad regime. So there's conflict going on. Interesting things are happening in that neighborhood. Bahrain, too, is another of those countries, a small Gulf country that has very extensive wealth. One of the largest American bases is there. And we hear now that Bahraini authorities sentenced Ibrahim Sharif, a leader of the WAD Association, to 6 months in prison and fined him $530 for insulting Israel and for inciting people to pressure government to stop the war in Gaza and boycott normalization. Bahrain is being pushed towards the Abraham Accord. They have a good relationship with America. They host one of the biggest bases of America. And President Trump really wants them to move into the Abraham Accords. I think they are already in the Abraham Accords. I'm very sure they're already in the Abraham Accord. They signed up to be in the Abraham Accord. And with all the activities that is going on in Gaza, this Gaza issue has become a problem for many of the Muslim countries. In fact, it's just not the Muslim countries. European countries too are doing some sense of introspection. Spain, Italy, they are increasing voices against the treatment of the Palestinians in Gaza. And but the Bahraini authorities are not particularly happy for that kind of criticism, especially since Israel is an ally now. Anyway, let's go on to other issues here. Ukrainian Banderista bloggers are claiming that Hungary has now effectively taken over a large part of Ukraine's far west. Hungary is now allegedly earning taxes from areas in Chernovsky and all the way to Lvov, with a large Hungarian population now residing there. Interesting. Um, the current Ukrainian country, as we should know, we remember, came off, they had quite a lot of land that they got after the World War II. They got territories from Hungary, they got territories from Poland and Romania. And some of these historical, very strong historical ties to their home country, like Hungary. And the Hungarians, these regions of Ukraine, they won. They don't particularly subscribe to the war, and that's what, if we see a lot of resistance towards being recruited, it comes from off of these areas that are not being sold on to this war. It comes also from traditional Russian-speaking areas in the south. They are not the ones who want to join the war, but President Putin has said that if the Poles won their regions in Ukraine and the Hungarians won their regions in Ukraine, he won't mind. Obviously, it's inciting them to possibly look at that, taking back the territories, because we should also remember that Odessa and all these other areas were given to Ukraine, particularly at least Crimea, by the actions of Khrushchev. So it was by executive fiat. These were traditionally Russian-speaking areas and Russian areas, but because of the Soviet state then, they were ceded to Ukraine to be able to get access to the Black Sea. Anyway, this is how it is now. These reporters are saying that Hungarians are slowly buying into some part of the far west of Ukraine. Well, we have not seen any other complaint here. We'll look at that, but it's this kind of news that tells you that some issues are much deeper than what you get to see. Let's go back again to Canada is trying to destroy North Atlantic automotive auto industry. This is just what I just said. They've allowed the Chinese to come and build. Mom, author, host, and Ingram Angle and Fox News. Okay, she's Fox News, and we know Fox News is very conservatively American. So she is saying that Canada breaks with US on. So it's one of the main deals that they made. It's that deal to manufacture cars, EVs. We know how the technology of the Chinese, they produce these cars, it's much cheaper, it's much advanced, and it has higher quality. Most American cars and most cars in North America cannot be able to compete with the Chinese cars. The Chinese they produce they are the largest car market. They produce almost 30 million cars for themselves. And then beyond that also, they are now the world's largest car exporting country. And they export these EVs, they export hybrids, they are very good at it. And it is for that reason why she feels that it's a threat to the North American auto industry for Canada to have the Chinese manufacturing cars in their country. Well, it's up to the Americans to allow the Chinese to come and manufacture cars there, because one of the things I know when I live as someone living in America is that it's a captive market for the Japanese car industry and for Koreans. So the American car industry is much dominated by people who make trucks, mainly Ford and Chevy and Ram and all of General Motors, Ram and Silverado and Ford 150 are the main American cars. The rest are Toyotas, Hyundai, and it is a captive market for them. It will be very interesting to allow the Chinese into that market, and let's see how it will rejig the market. It's a Trump myth that America needs Greenland for its Golden Dome missile defense shield. It already has a large radar installation there, and it's free to upgrade. Carl Bildt, co-chair European Council for Foreign Relations, former Prime Minister of Sweden. Okay, so that's where it's coming from. I should point out that the Swedes are really, really uncomfortable with this move. They actually feel that there's a territory there not too far from Denmark that America might show an interest in if they finally succeed in taking Denmark. America does have a deal, though, a 1951 treaty that has been long. They use that to be able to watch and see the Soviet missiles in case the Soviets were trying to shoot into America. And they have all these radar stations and a lot of stations. In fact, at one time, they actually had 30 bases in Greenland until they cut it down to just a few bases now. So they've been in Greenland. America has been in Greenland extensively for a long time, and maybe this is what he's trying to argue. He is one of the European voices that are opposing it. Some are even going as far as saying they will oppose militarily. This is a story that is just turning the whole world. Canada strategically recalibrates to China to break dependence on U.S. canning.
And decisively. $20 billion in wages are earned each year by Canadians because of our existing trade relationship. And this is a relationship that has been distant and uncertain for nearly a decade. That has held back investment, it's stalled business growth, and cost Canadian workers good opportunities. And it has had the consequence of leaving us even more dependent on our largest trading partner. And that's why immediately after the election, Canada's new government began to recalibrate our relationship with China. Strategically, pragmatically.
So that's it. That's it. He has actually stated it very categorically. They do have extensive trade though with China already, and he's saying that because of this bad relationship over the past 10 years, it was not allowed to flourish. This is one of the things we talk about drones again. So a drone that was a loitering drone captured the moment a Fab 500, one of these Fab series of bombs, dumb bombs that have been made to have ability to they've been made smart. It caught the moment when one of them flew by and hit a target. So that's the target, and then there it is. That's a bomb, and it hit the target. So we get all these images of the war, and it shows us that this is the most visual war. This is the most recorded war, and that's why this war is so hard for the propagandists in the West to sell as a proposition that the Ukrainians are winning. It's very, very hard. We see all these images, and it is left to any person to make their decisions as to what really is happening. Sloviansk Kramatorsk's direction, Russian forces took Privole. Another feature of this war is the vast amount of military bloggers like this one here now. They give us details, they give us maps, they give us movement in the directions, they give us where flags have been raised. If you pay attention to this war, it's just, unless you're very lazy and you just decide that it's just the BBC and the CNN you want to listen to, there's a lot of access to information from the Ukrainian side and then from the Russian side, and even from independent reporters. So it's just up to you to just seek a little information. And it is one of the reasons, one of the great things of X and Telegram, that they make their platforms available to alternative voices for us to be able to see this. So it's up to you to actually put in a little effort to know what's moving. Sloviansk Kramatorsk's direction, Russian forces took Privole. Just shows that the Russians are moving quite a bit after they took Siversk. They are moving very close now to Sloviansk. Then we will end with a series of videos here now. Just maybe two other stories. Air Defense Forces shot down 99 Ukrainian drones over Russian region. The Russians are having their own time. The good thing about when they attack you like this is that it develops your capacity, because at the early times, they had a problem dealing with these Ukrainian drones, but they are dealing with them better now. 99, I like the fact that the Ukrainians seem to have something for 90. 91 drones attacked Novgorod residence of President Putin, and now 99 overnight. They lob these drones constantly all across over the border into Belgorod, into the neighboring cities, and sometimes very far. Some of these drones go as much as 1,500 kilometers. But the Russians are developing the capacity to shoot them down. To shoot down 91 drones, all of them coming from different locations. They were all shut off different locations going towards Novgorod residence of President Putin. They were all shut down. So while they're also building the capacity to be offensive, they're also building their own defensive capacity. And we know they have the Shahid drones, they have the Geran drones. They are also now having ability to shoot them down. It was hard for them to shoot these drones down in the early stages, but now they're building that capacity. Canadians view US more unfavorably than China. The world is really changing. Which report is this? Where is that? It says Spencer Ferdinando. Is it his own personal blog or something? But he makes a lot of this has a lot of data on it, and it tells us that from a pool, Canadians now feel that China is much more a friendly country towards them. Russia, United States, China, India. So this is, I don't know how reliable that data is, but that's his own viewpoint. Who is Spencer Ferdinando? He's a writer. Okay, he has quite a lot of followers on Twitter, and he's actually a Canadian writer. Let's take this as our last story of the day. Yes, this has to do with Venezuela, and 3 U.S. aircraft landed in Caracas, an LM-100J Super Hercules of the company Palace Aviation, Dassault Falcon. And yesterday, or a few days ago, the head of the CIA was in Caracas. He met with Delcy Rodriguez, and whatever it is and whatever deals that America is making with the government and new administration in Venezuela is playing out now. Americans are even talking about reopening their embassy there. And this engagement, President Trump has taken a very different view towards Venezuela, and one that is shocking a lot of people. He's trying to engage with the country. He's removing sanctions or thinking about removing sanctions. And he's trying to move them towards being a closer ally to America. At least he seems to be doing that with this Delcy Rodriguez government. He met with Maria Corina Machado, and she gave him her Nobel Prize medal. He took it. He said she offered it to him, and he liked it. There's something interesting going on in Venezuela, and it will continue to play out, and we will see, and we'll talk more about it in the coming days. Anyway, this is where I'll end the video for today. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until my next video, you have a good day.